Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. All right, welcome back to the program. Last week, the Central Bank of Nigeria directed that all banks and financial institutions should transfer all dormant accounts, unclaimed balances, and other financial assets to a designated account. And that account will be known as the Unclaimed Balances Trust Fund Pool account. The Apex Bank also stated that the funds from the dormant accounts and the unclaimed balances will be invested in Nigerian treasury bills and other government securities. So what does all this mean for you that have your urgent 2K or it's not urgent anymore, monies that have been in dormant accounts, or you have monies in dormant accounts, perhaps scattered across banks, and you've not touched them for about 10 years, even if it's 1,000 naira or 500 or 2,000. Of course, there's a regulation to that now. We will be discussing that and some other trending business stories. My guest is with me right now. He's Olumide Adesina, an analyst at Quantum Economics. Hello, Adesina. Hello, Olumide, and welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, let's get started. Can you please explain what this means to our viewers, really? And if
I
this is
think
a
it's
good move?
I think it's a proactive move for the Nigerian economy, knowing fully well that oil production that brings in most of our export earnings are still at tepid levels. Oil theft still on the high, and you could still see that the headline inflation rate pretty much high. So the CBN is looking for creative ways to utilize on on untransacted funds in the market, and that's why you saw that move coming in. I think it's safe because it's going to the safest instrument, and that's the federal government securities, and also the fact that the those that will be liable for that commitment are dormant accounts that are 10 years above. I think it's a symbolic move, but the question still remains that it shows how desperate and tight the federal government is. Look at the deficit, look at the debt service in Q1, about 71% was spent on debt service. Funding on education, infrastructure, agriculture still remains lukewarm. And, with the rising poverty rate at about 87 million Nigerians at that level, the federal government had to create incentives rather than just going to the IMF or World Bank for liquidity.
Mm. Is this another form of accruing money for the government, which you mentioned earlier, that we're seeing that the government is now becoming desperate? But this desperation, does it mean now taking my money by force?
No, actually, for an account to be dormant for 10 years, pretty much it means it's not in use. And, in the economy, capital definitely is very important. And I think like the situation of the country is, like I mentioned earlier, it's very important that such funds are utilized for the goodwill of the economy. And for those that can get their funds back and within the account, the funds will definitely be given back with interest. So I don't think that's the problem. The issue we have right now is the fiscal responsibility. Has it been effective? And despite the CBN's creative strategies in trying to prop up liquidity, we've seen that inflation remains sticky and not transitory while we wait for the MPC meeting today.
Mm. We'll come to the MPC meeting in a bit, but do we also see some other countries that have adopted this? Because even while this regulation, I think perhaps was a bit updated because it's been there, I think, since 2015. At the time, it was 6 years. They moved it to 10 years. That is for inactive accounts. If there are other countries, because I also try to look at international best practices. I know that the US, for example, does that too, that if monies in the bank have been inactive for a while, they transfer that money to the state. I think they call it something. I'll try and remember even before the end of the show what they call that. Is it enchantment or something? So since you said it's a good move, if there are other countries we are copying, and are we now copying them well?
Yeah, I think a few countries, particularly emerging countries you mentioned, also adopt similar strategy, particularly funds that have not been inactive for a long period of time. But if you look at the context at Nigeria has adopted this issue, it comes at a time where uh, the the economy is at a very tight situation, and knowing fully well that banks right now are facing high CRR ratio. The cost of lending also has really made businesses having a very tough economic climate. So banks there and the cost of borrowing also on the federal government side has increased, just to create incentives for FDIs, FPIs, and other imported FX. So I think while we need to look at the fact that this is not out of the blue, the localized issue, the paramount issue here is that the government is trying to shore up liquidity, which has really been a key issue under this administration.
So if the government invests in T-bills and other securities, the question will be, of course, who would reap the dividends and all of that. I also read what they said. I think in 10 days or so, the person will benefit. So I want you to explain that, especially for those watching and listening right now,
Yeah,
that if you have
definitely. Yeah,
dormant monies, the government will take it and invest perhaps on your behalf. Will you get the
yeah.
return?
Definitely, and also it's more beneficial for the economy because unused capital will be used to fund infrastructure. And cost listeners need to understand that this is the safest instrument in the land, FGS security. So the case of default is very unlikely. And you need to also look at that you don't have a tax liability on it because usually investments in these assets are not taxed. And also, like I mentioned, it's really a positive end on the economy. We really need funds, particularly on infrastructure. You look at the case of education, funding, and funding on education, health, and agriculture. It still remains at a lower level when you look at percentage to uh, the budget itself and GDP. So I think government is also looking at other ways in raising those levels, and that's really beneficial to the economy at large.
Will the people that they took those monies from in their banks, will they get back the rewards? That's what I'm asking, because
Yeah,
for
definitely.
yes, for an account to be inactive for like 10 years or so, perhaps whether the person is passed and perhaps the bank doesn't know or something, or they jackpot or something, or you just feel disgruntled with the bank and the remaining money, just leave it there. So there are many issues why people leave monies in the
Yeah,
bank. So if things like this are happening, that the federal government wants to do this and now wants to pay interest, that is your dividends from your investment, how will Nigerians know? For somebody
the
that the account has been, what's it called, has been dormant, will they now pay the rewards back into that account? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
yeah,
So how
definitely.
it works, because pe-
Once the claimant request for his funds, when an account is dormant for that period, like you said, either the person is deceased or legal issues. There are a lot of reasons why accounts can be dormant for that long. But the context here is that once the claimant successfully gets back his account, it comes with interest. Because when an account is dormant, you don't get such including investments. You don't, it's frozen. And most likely, inflation definitely will have eaten up that value. So it's also a win for the clients because your money is being put into use for the Nigerian economy.
what options are left for the banks now? Wouldn't this be a loss for the banks? And do you see the banks coming up with, for lack of a better word to use, being a bit crooked now? Let me put it this way, because the dormant accounts or the monies in those dormant accounts, the banks have been using those monies one way or the other. But
Yeah.
now the CBN is coming to say, let's get those monies and invest, get it as revenue for the government, we invest and you also get the reward. So wouldn't the banks be at loss of those monies now? And do you think that they will come up with shady ways as to dodge the regulator? Perhaps if they'll have, for example, 1,000 dormant accounts, they may say, it's not 1,000 now, it's 200 or something. Or will they now start communicating, try to make communication with those account holders Olumide, I
I
hope
don't know.
you are understanding all the issues
Yeah,
I'm bringing up. Yes.
yeah. I know we're in an industry where we don't trust our banks, but I'll tell you this for free that Nigerian banks practically can do without those funds. If you look at retained earnings, if you look at how the CBN even raised the capitalization exercise without retained earnings, and you see the way the strategies which banks are trying to raise money, from Jais Bank to GT to Access, you could see the level of confidence in the market. And despite the fact that they are lagging on the stock market, I mean the banking index down
Mm.
5% this year, you could see that propped up from their. And pretty much that is because of three reasons. First, the quality of personnel in the Nigerian banking industry is ahead of many sectors. The sector has been immune to the Nigerian economy because of treasury activities of these banks. You could see the long and net position on FX, how we paid these banks to record windfalls that the federal government is taxing with envy. You could also look at the fact that the quality of personnel in the past 2 decades, right from the uh, reforms of Soludo has really paid, and that's one of the gains we've seen. So I think pretty much the banks have shown that whatever you throw at them, it makes them stronger. We are in an era of the ISCR. Non-performing loans is one of the lowest in a decade. You look at capital adequacy ratio, it's healthy. So the banking indicators are showing that banks pretty much have little to worry about. The only concerns we are having in the banking and it's already reflected on the share price is the huge tax on FX gains. Pretty much it tells you that investors are pretty much concerned because why do we seem to punish the most competent and effective players in the economy? Why don't we look at the fact that the oil sector, the agro-allied industries, and the oil sector have pretty much been lagging because of poor spending by the federal government and unnecessary fiscal discipline.
Mm. Okay. Just one more question on this issue of dormant accounts and all that. For Nigerians listening now and they do have dormant accounts, what will you tell them to do? Should they reactivate their accounts or should they leave it for the government to take their monies and pay them interest? That's for those that are still alive or for those that have issues perhaps with their dormant accounts to resolve it with their banks.
No, what the CBN is trying to say is that if you definitely have your dormant account, you can really activate it and put it to use. Putting your cash in the bank already, if the headline inflation is already eroding that. So the government by the CBN is doing a favor to you. So if you can activate your account, definitely you can tap into the treasury market where yields are as high as 26%, or you go to the secondary market where you can get pretty much at between 18 to 21%. So I think it's all based on the opportunity of the claimant. Can he activate the account? If you can't, the government will keep it as user. When you come and claim, you get your money back.
Mm. I know I had said one last question, but another question just came to my mind in terms of this move by the government. Do you see it as a very classic move? And let me explain. In terms of how much they will mop from the banks, will it be equal to the interest that they will pay people in terms of dividends and coupons and all of that? I hope you understand what I'm saying because let's say if they
Yeah,
take like 100 billion, they have to pay interest on it. So, does it really make a whole
I,
lot of business sense because they will
it
still
makes
pay
a lot of
money.
business sense for them.
Mm,
Yeah, yeah. If you look at, I understand the cost of
yeah,
debt. It's
yeah.
increasing the cost of debt servicing on the Nigerian economy. I get that.
Mm,
But you look at utilization of funds right now, what the government is trying to do. The question here is that if the government makes right use of it, it makes a lot of sense. For example, if the government increase spending on basic education, agriculture, definitely we'll see a a current moderation in rates. And pretty much that's really what is really affecting the economy. And also, you look at the fact that really what is happening and what is the major concern of many players in the economy is not really mopping up raising liquidity, is the efficiency of liquidity in the system. We've seen that many state governments are not spending in real sectors. We've seen the level of poverty increasing at levels not seen in many years. So these are concerns that really many parties are really worried about rather than raising funds because the truth of the matter is that the CBN is playing its role, providing liquidity to the fiscal side, but it's not their job to spend such. what they can only do is manage. And I think it's now become the finance minister who heads the fiscal side to really bring up strategy on making proper utilization of those funds.
Let's come over to the MPC that will decide on rates today. What's your prediction? The last meeting, MPR was kept at 26, was raised to 26.25% from 24.75%.
Yeah, I think inflation rate has risen for 18 straight months. It's a three-decade high. It shows that inflation is sticky and not transitory. We also see the fact that the US Fed has not kept rates at moderated levels. The market earlier this year expected the US Fed to reduce interest rates at least three times. So it means that real rates are more attractive in emerging markets in America than Nigeria. So for the Apex Bank to keep rates, to keep naira denominated investment attractive and increase FX inflows amid TP production, we most likely see an increase of at least 100 basis points. The market is expecting at least the Fed should be more hawkish than what many pundits are saying because of the cost of borrowing being on the high for businesses in the Nigerian economy.
What rate are you expecting? How many basis points increase? Because it seems everyone is expecting that Cardoso and his team would increase rates today. To
Yeah,
what tune do you expect? Because last time he surprised many people by increasing it by, I think, 150 basis points, if I'm not mistaken. So in the last, since he came in, they've raised rates from by 7.5%. So what percentage do you think they will raise rates today, if you think they will raise? Though some people are saying that they should keep the rates on hold.
I don't think keeping rates on hold will be very likely because of the inflation. Because when you listen to his last speech, he spoke about the fact that they really look at what the inflation readings will really matter a lot, and the fact that inflation does not look like it's moderating anytime soon, seeing at least 100 basis points increase. But I don't think it will go beyond 200 basis points, and I think it might be the last aggressive rate hike this year.
Olumide, you've not given me an exact stuff. Did I hear you or it flew past me?
I said 100 basis points.
Okay, 100 basis points. Okay. Now let's take a look. I want you to comment a bit about the taxing of FX gains. When you saw that, what do you think on banks' FX gains and all of that?
Uh,
Meanwhile, companies make losses. The federal government, why didn't they talk about when companies are making losses? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. MTN making losses now, many banks making, so it seems that the government, sometimes anywhere they just see, they just pounce on it,
Actually, I was bitter from an investment perspective.
yeah.
We have exposure in all Nigerian banks, and particularly just for investment and educational purposes. I think what the signal the federal government is sending is that companies that have been able to find a way around being immune against the Nigerian economy would be punished. This is an industry that is facing a very aggressive CBN. Don't forget that CRR
Mm-hmm.
is at record high. And you look at the fact that they pay AMCON dues, they pay insurance obligations to NDIC, they also pay different forms of tax. They are the most efficient employer of labor in the country. At some point, UB had employees of 1,000. You tend to wonder to what end are you trying to, because one of the problems with the Nigerian economy is that when you take a lot from those that are being productive and you make excuses for the less productive ones, you are not encouraging capitalism. And we know what that will definitely do. So I think from an investment perspective, it wasn't so good. But I'll beat by that. I think you look at the market reaction, it hasn't been that bad. Most of these banks have been able to shake off that narrative, but it has definitely capped their upside.
All right, let's talk about the raging controversy. Perhaps in coming days it will simmer if we see what the petroleum minister oil, state's petroleum minister oil, has done, at least the meeting yesterday with Dangote and stakeholders in that sector. What do you think? Of course, a lot of people have said it's bad optics for the country in terms of President Tinubu going outside to get foreign investors, yet you're not encouraging your own investors. Dangote has been accused of monopoly. He's, spoken about how come monopoly, IOCs are saying cement and sugar and co is not oil is not oil and gas. The oil and gas players have so much money also to match Dangote, you know. So if you put a lot of these things in context, walk me through your reaction.
No, I think to be fair, I think first of all, I think the petroleum minister meeting Africa's richest man and the regulators, I think was good. I think it tampered down the policy that has been overheated. But you know, you look at it context, you look at the fact that Dangote plays a systemic role to the Nigerian economy. He has a fifth of the Nigerian stock market valuation is directly exposed to him, and he plays a key role in the economy also. And you look at his strategy, you know, those that are saying that he's a monopoly, I'm not disputing the fact that um, businessmen don't have monopolies instead. In fact, from Bill Gates to Larry Page of United States, you see that at some point the antitrust of United States were after them for monopolistic tendencies. But the reality is that this is a man that keeps most of his funds in the country. This is a man that is one of the highest employer of labor, yeah, that employs so many people. This is a man that took risk where others dared to just be talking. You look at the context of $19 billion revenue refinery in Nigeria's business capital. It has already created at least 4,000 direct jobs. You know, the problem was not the drama being on air. The problem was that a regulator acted like a musician, and that was really disappointing. You know, he needed to understand the power of his tongue, particularly in an industry like the energy industry. You also need to also understand the fact that one of the problems facing Nigerian economy is the oil industry. The FX market has been very volatile because the NNPC can't meet their obligation. I understand that oil products are priced internationally. I understand the fact that IOCs have an obligation to meet traders, but the reality is that an economy doesn't move in absolute or vanilla terms. Government has a role to play, particularly when your brightest businessmen make such investments. You saw how Elon Musk enjoyed subsidy under President Obama. You saw how Jeff Bezos enjoyed subsidy um, during the Clinton era. So there are ways things can work. And I think, to be fair, I think many things were exaggerated. Dangote's refinery will definitely list in the stock market uh, based on its tendencies of trying to that risk through public market. I don't see Dangote selling to NNPCL. He knows fully well that NNPCL could not fulfill their 20% stake obligation. How would they be able to fulfill 100%? So it was just some emotional statements out there. But I think in reality, the Nigerian economy stands a lot to gain from people like Dangote.
You know, there are so many different sides to it, and it depends on which lens you're using to look at it. Because if you're also accusing Dangote of monopoly in the country, that means even you as a government or regulator, you are not also doing your work, because there are antitrust laws that should also avert such kind of things. No matter how we see the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Metas, when the regulator or when the US government feel they are also doing something not nice, they call them out, and they penalize them for that, and they put things in place to check them also. So I think, and which we are not really seeing here, as it were. But anyways,
Exactly.
so you know, so there are many sides to it, but let's see what happens in the next few days. Thank you very much, Olumide, for your perspectives this morning, and I'll see you soon. Have a good
Thank you
day.
for
Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.